The ocean doesn't forget, and neither do I. I left my cabin for a year, came back to find strangers marking my land, trying to take what's mine. HOA agents, trucks, papers, threats they all thought I'd surrender. But the tides had another plan. One phone call, one move, one truth, and suddenly, they were the ones running. Want to see how I defended my home? Watch the full story, and subscribe for the full justice saga. The ocean doesn't forget, and today it seemed to whisper my name. I'd spent an entire year under the blazing sun, 12-hour days that left my skin scorched and my body aching. Every drop of sweat, every sleepless night, every aching muscle, it was all for this moment. For this cabin, my grandfather's beach cabin, 3 small rooms, salt, stained windows, and a creaking porch that had felt the weight of decades of storms, tides, and memories. To anyone else, it was just a weathered building on a strip of sand. To me, it was everything: home, heritage, sanctuary. I never imagined returning to find strangers planting flags on my land. The coastal road stretched ahead, winds whipping my hair, salt in the air, the ocean roaring softly behind me. And then I saw them, black SUV lined up in the sand, gleaming like predators waiting for prey. Men in crisp polos, sunglasses shielding their eyes, barked orders at one another. Clipboards in hand, radios crackling. Bright yellow notices nailed to the cabin door flapped violently in the wind. Eviction notice, immediate action required. My stomach twisted, my hands tightened on the steering wheel, and then I saw her, the HOA president. Perfect hair, designer blazer, heels sinking slightly into the sand, a smile on her face that was all practiced charm and concealed malice. She raised her hand like she was greeting royalty, not someone whose home she was about to steal. "Good morning," she said, voice syrupy, each word calculated. "We're here to enforce seizure proceedings. You have 20 minutes to vacate. 20 minutes. As if all the sweat, the nights alone with the sound of waves, the repairs I had done by hand, the memories carved into every corner could vanish with a few words. I stepped out of my truck. The sunlight hit my face, burning, blinding, but I didn't flinch. My eyes scanned the scene, the cabin, the sand, the SUV, and the agents, all the elements aligned for intimidation. But I wasn't afraid. I never had been. My hand brushed the worn folder tucked under my arm: deeds, surveys, receipts, recorded calls, photographs, every piece of proof that this cabin was mine. Their confident smiles faltered. The agents shifted, discomfort spreading like a ripple through the ranks. They expected fear. They didn't expect knowledge, preparation, and resolve. I walked slowly toward the porch, every step deliberate, letting the creak of the boards echo across the sand. The ocean behind me roared softly, a reminder that this land remembers, that the tides do not lie, that the memories of decades can't be erased by paper or authority. "This is my property," I said, voice calm but firm. "My family's, and no law, no paper, no threat will ever take it from me." The HOA president's perfect smile thinned into a line. Her hands tightened around the clipboard, a lifeline she thought she could wield as authority. The agents glanced at one another, unease spreading. One muttered into his radio. Another shifted on his feet. They were realizing, slowly, that confidence built on bluff and arrogance cracks when faced with truth. I didn't reach for my shotgun, not yet. That wasn't necessary. Presence, proof, and resolve were weapons stronger than anything they had. The tension was thick enough to taste, hanging in the salty air with the sound of crashing waves. By the time the first SUV engine hummed nervously, I knew the tide was turning. The balance had shifted. This wasn't just about land anymore. It was about legacy, memory, and justice. And I knew, deep down, that the next steps, confrontation, patience, and clever moves, would reclaim not only the cabin, but everything the HOA thought they could take from me. The ocean had remembered. And so had I. By sunrise, I knew what had to be done. This wasn't just about a cabin. This was about reclaiming every ounce of my grandfather's legacy, every memory embedded in the wood, every grain of sand I had walked barefoot on. The black SUV were already there, engines humming softly, like predators circling their prey. The HOA president had arrived early, stepping out of her vehicle with that familiar smug smile, heels sinking slightly into the sand. Her agents fanned out, clipboards in hand, radios crackling, perfectly rehearsed, perfectly threatening. She spotted me and raised her hand in a mock greeting. "Good morning," she said, her voice honeyed but venomous. "We're here to enforce seizure proceedings. Cooperation will make this easier." I didn't respond immediately. I stepped onto the sand, boots pressing into the grains, and let the wind carry the sound of the ocean behind me. The waves slapped against the rocks in a steady rhythm, almost like applause, almost like a warning. "You're trespassing." I finally said, calm but firm, "This cabin is mine, my family's, and no papers, no threats, no intimidation will change that." The agents froze for a moment, shocked by the confidence in my voice. The HOA president's smile faltered. She wasn't used to being challenged with certainty, especially not in front of witnesses. I reached into my bag and pulled out the folder, every survey, every receipt, every recording of phone calls and emails where HOA officials admitted errors or misapplied fines. I laid it carefully on the hood of my truck, the sunlight reflecting off the papers like a spotlight. The young agents muttered to each other, eyes darting nervously. The older ones exchanged worried glances. The woman's perfectly manicured hands tightened around the clipboard as if the paper could shield her from the truth. I didn't need to raise my voice. I didn't need a gun yet. All I needed was presence, proof, and the knowledge that every bluff they relied on had just been exposed. The HOA president tried to regain control. "Sir, you can't," she began, but I raised a hand, stopping her mid-sentence. "Watch me," I said. She faltered. The wind carried my words across the lot. The ocean behind me seemed louder now, the waves crashing harder, almost in rhythm with my heartbeat. Then I did something she didn't expect. I called Maria, the neighbor who had been quietly following all this. Within minutes, she arrived, phone recording live, capturing every move, every word. The agents' faces turned pale. Cameras didn't lie. Live witnesses didn't lie, and suddenly the bluff they had relied on began to crumble. They moved toward the cabin, clipboards held like weapons, trying to assert authority. I stayed calm, hands empty, posture deliberate. I didn't reach for the shotgun yet. I didn't have to. The weight of truth, the knowledge of proof, and the live cameras carried more authority than any paper could. "You have no right," I said, voice steady. "Everything you claim is fabricated or misapplied. Every survey proves it. Every call, every receipt, every notice, it's all mine." The lead agent squinted at the folder, whispered into his radio, and for the first time, hesitation flickered across his face. I could see it in the subtle shift of his stance, the twitch in his jaw. The agents were starting to realize this wasn't a fight they could win. The HOA president tried a final intimidation tactic. "We will involve the sheriff. You cannot stop the law." I nodded, calm. "Do it. But the law doesn't ignore evidence, and it doesn't ignore witnesses. Check the cameras, check the documents, check the surveys. You've built your power on lies, and lies can't stand against truth." For a long, tense moment, nothing moved. The wind rustled papers, the waves crashed, and I held my ground, steady as a lighthouse. The agents began muttering, uncertainty spreading through their ranks. The woman's voice cracked for the first time. Finally, one of the SUVs started to roll back. Another followed. The agents exchanged hurried whispers. The bluff had been called. The tide had turned. By mid-morning, the parking lot was nearly empty. The HOA president shouted threats, but they sounded hollow, lost against the weight of evidence and the scrutiny of the live feed. Her perfect world of authority was crumbling, and she knew it. I stepped onto the porch, letting the ocean wind sweep across my face. I didn't cheer. I didn't celebrate, not yet. This was just the first victory, a small reclaiming of what had almost been stolen. I spent the afternoon walking every corner of the cabin, inspecting the wood, the windows, the dock. Every detail mattered, every memory mattered. The ocean whispered approval. I knew that the next steps ensuring the HOA never tried again would require patience, planning, and every ounce of strategy I had learned in the past year. That evening, I sat on the porch, watching the sun dip into the horizon, painting the waves gold and orange. The ocean had remembered, and so had I. The fight wasn't over, but I was ready. The next morning, the ocean crashed against the shore with a steady rhythm, as if reminding me that it remembers everything: storms, trespasses, and those who dare to challenge what belongs to another. My cabin stood untouched, but the tension was thick in the air. The HOA wouldn't quit easily. Letters, phone calls, threats, they arrived nonstop. Polished legalese claiming authority, new inspection notices. Attempts to involve local sheriffs, but this time I wasn't alone. Neighbors and allies had gathered quietly, cameras rolling, ready to document every move. The first taste of fear flickered in the agent's eyes the moment they realized I had witnesses. By mid-morning, she arrived, the HOA president, heels sinking slightly into the sand, clipboard held like a weapon, a practiced smile on her face. She tried to radiate control, but the faint tremor in her voice betrayed her. "Good morning," she said, voice sweet but strained. "This is your final warning." I stepped forward, calm, folder in hand. The ocean wind tugged at my hair, salt in the air, sunlight glinting off the water. "This is my property," I said, steady, commanding. "Every inch, every board, every memory mine, and now the world knows it." Her smile faltered, her agents glanced at each other. I could see doubt spreading like wildfire. They were used to compliance, not confrontation backed by evidence and witnesses. I pulled out my phone. Maria's live feed streamed across the lot, capturing every move, every word, every falter. Comments scrolled with encouragement from neighbors and viewers, hundreds watching live, hundreds more ready to testify. Every bluff, every attempt at intimidation was on display. She tried a final move, waving papers, threatening lawsuits. But it was too late. County surveys, receipts, recorded calls, every document proved my ownership beyond doubt. Authority built on arrogance and lies crumbled in real time. One by one, the agents began retreating, whispering excuses, hands raised as if surrendering to inevitability. The HOA president screamed her final warnings, but they were empty threats, lost in the wind, swallowed by the waves. By afternoon, the lot was silent except for the ocean, the cabin, and me. I walked through every room, every corner, every step of the porch. The smell of salt and old wood welcomed me back. I didn't cheer, I didn't smile, I simply exhaled, letting the tension drain away. I spent the evening reclaiming the small things, tightening a loose railing, repairing the rope swing, dusting decades of memories from the corners. Every repair, every gesture was a reclamation not just of property, but of dignity, of history, of legacy. The ocean reflected the golden sunset on the horizon. The cabin glowed in the warm light. I stepped onto the dock, letting the waves lap at my boots. Every creak of the wood echoed victory. Every ripple on the water whispered justice. The HOA letters, threats, and arrogance were gone. All that remained was truth, witness, and patience stronger than any suit, any threat, any paper. As darkness fell, I lit a small lantern on the porch. Its soft glow mirrored on the waves, sending tiny ripples across the ocean. I closed my eyes, letting the wind, the salt, and the sound of crashing waves remind me, justice doesn't always come loud. Sometimes it's quiet, patient, certain, relentless. The ocean remembered everything, and so did I. I had defended my grandfather's legacy, protected my home, reclaimed my sanctuary, and I knew without a doubt, if anyone ever tried to challenge me again, they would face the same truth. Because this was my land, my cabin, my legacy, and nothing, no HOA, no paper, no threat would ever take it from me again. They thought they could take my home, but the ocean remembered, and so did I. Like, share, and subscribe for more HOA drama. This video is a dramatized, AI-generated story created for entertainment purposes only.